I want to start by apologizing. I forgot to put in a slide with my name and my email address. So my name is Karen Zimmerman. I am the conference lay leader. And I tried to hit today some topics that I see a lot of questions about. So hopefully I chose the right topics. If you have questions, I will hang around up here for a few minutes. If you want to talk, my email, if you want to write it down, is karen.p.zimmerman@gmail.com. So my name, my middle initial with dots in between, and gmail.com. So if we want to go to this is the LaitySession, so hopefully it hits the topics that you all are very concerned about. And I want to welcome you. I do want to, let's go to the next slide. I want to start with a meditation. And I want to give you kind of the background behind this meditation. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to give you some comments that God has given me since then. When I was praying about what to do for this, God was very strong. I needed to read this to you, but I need to give you the history behind it. I just retired 2 months ago. Thank you. And last December, I was worrying so much about how to transfer knowledge because I had a middle management position. You know, I'd been there 43 years. I had a lot of knowledge to pass on. And I had been praying about it a lot, and God woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and He gave me this, and He wasn't going to let me go back to sleep till I got up and wrote it down. So I'm going to read it to you, and then I want to add some comments that He's given me since then. And I have to take my glasses off or I can't see it, so that means I can't see you. Sorry. So this is what He gave me. I'm retiring, and I'm thinking about all of the stuff I need to hand on. And I'm realizing it is like ending every other phase of life. You have a lot of stuff you don't need and no one else wants or can use. I've cleaned out my old paper files years ago. The files I still have are electronic, so they take up less space. What happens then is there's less reason to clean them out. But are they of any use to anyone else? How do you search for something that you don't know is there? If you know it's there, you can search until you find it. There's reason to search because you know it's there. But if you don't know it's there, how long do you really want to search? You don't want or care to read every old email string that explains or documents every decision someone else made at the beginning of a program that's been in production for years. That's how old my files were. Some of our OEMs and our customers want us to keep the files for 50 years after the end of production. Our industry says for 10 years after the end of production. But why save them that long if the person that did the work or made the decision is no longer around to find it, to prove it? Why save it? So it's easy to go from this to why save anything, and then it's a downhill slope to did anything I did in my job matter? And I have to conclude that it did. But only because my job helped grow the kingdom. But you have to really look to see how it did. It isn't obvious. I didn't preach every Sunday. I didn't teach others every day how to read the Bible and see the Holy Spirit. And does anything really matter except that? But God is making me see that, yes, anything that I did that helped grow the kingdom mattered. And there are several ways to look at how what I did mattered. I helped make cars better. Because of that, others' lives were better in the kingdom. Those cars were used for everyday things that made lives better for the kingdom. Those cars took people to church, took people to feed others, and took people to make families and family memories for the kingdom. So that mattered. The controllers that I helped create ran machines that made the roads for cars that were used for building houses and used for growing food. They went in machines that protected us from harm and helped improve the air that we breathed. All of that mattered because it helped others live in the kingdom, others that I will never know. But the work I did was most importantly the backdrop for me living in the kingdom, and the relationships that I built and the things that I did and said every day. The glimpses of Jesus that people got because of things that I did and said. That backdrop mattered because of what I did for the kingdom. And that mattered to the people that saw Jesus because of me. Sometimes those are the things that can't be measured, such as the little girl in India that matters a little more to herself because of a woman in the U.S. taking the time to talk to her. Being able to talk to her about if angels are real and that Christmas is about Jesus and that Santa is just fun. Or the worker that has someone to pray with when his parents are dying. Or the friend that you wouldn't have made any other way with whom you have grown together in the faith because of each other. The stuff mattered to all of these things that were done for the kingdom. They aren't stuff that can be passed on because they can't be used by anyone else. But they are stuff that were worth keeping because they enabled the memories that enabled the job, that enabled the growth of the kingdom. And so they weren't wasted and they were of value. I think this applies to all of our stuff. The stuff from our childhood that helps us remember so that today we can live in the kingdom. The stuff we saved from our children's childhood because we remember the little girl that knew God's protection because we lived in the kingdom. The pictures that made us remember kingdom instances with our families. The stuff that helps our grandson know how to take care of his mom because he sees me take care of my mom. All of that stuff matters because it helps us remember. As we move out of a stage, some of that stuff is no longer needed. If we no longer need the memory that helps us live in the kingdom, then we no longer need the stuff. I don't need my files from 10 years ago when I am no longer in that job because I will no longer have that background from my kingdom work. My kingdom work will be different. It won't be more or less important, but it will be different. I read that millennials don't want all the stuff their parents saved, and I'm sure a lot of you are running into that already, just as no one needs my old files. But I think maybe this is because we haven't passed on the memories that go with it. The old green pitcher that always held iced tea at my mom's house doesn't really hold a memory for my children, just as some of the serving dishes that my great-grandmother used and held memories from my mom don't have memories for me. Things that remind me of my grandparents don't matter to my children, but they have different stuff. Just some of it isn't mine. But human beings need stuff. They need the stuff that enables their memories. And some stuff matters more than others. I pass on, though, only the stuff with shared memories, the stuff that helps others remember. That helps them smile at a memory that helps them see the kingdom. That's why my files don't have to be passed on. They will make me sad when I hit delete, but they aren't useful to anyone else. I was surprised it didn't make me sad. It is okay that they aren't useful to anyone else. Others are living in the kingdom through their own backdrop. What matters is that I help them live in the kingdom. And my backdrop's going to change, but my kingdom work will never change. And I am here to help others live in the kingdom. So I don't know what that meant to all of you, but I know that God gave me some words to add to that today. I know that all of us have stuff that have bad memories with them as well. The stuff we need to get rid of. And so I know that as I retire, we are also moving, which means that we have to change churches. And it's very, very hard for me to leave this church because it has done a lot of healing for me. I was at a UMC church. We had some very bad things happen. It was right there at the time of disaffiliation. This church did not disaffiliate. We changed to the church that we go to now 2 weeks before they disaffiliated. So we were charter members of the GMC at this church. This church has done so much healing for us. It has helped me let go of the stuff, of the baggage, of the pain. So when I go to this new church in a few weeks, I won't be taking that baggage with me because of the church I'm leaving. And so I want to encourage you to look at the stuff that you are carrying that you need to not carry. The stuff that brings back the bad memories, keep the stuff that brings the good memories. That helps you in the kingdom. Stuff with the bad memories, get rid of it. And so I hope that this did for you what it did for me. It really helped me when God gave it to me, and he was very insistent I needed to read it today. So let's pray now about our session. Father, as we work on how we multiply, help us to remember that the stuff that brings pain causes us to multiply pain. And so we need to get rid of that stuff and keep the stuff that helps us multiply for your kingdom. Amen. So, well, thank you. So I have two topics today. The first one is we're going to talk about lay leaders. And the second one is we're going to talk about how pastors are selected. And when we get to that, I'll give you the background on that presentation. We've got a video segue between them that will also help. So let's go to the next slide. District lay leaders is what we're going to talk about today. This is the list of district lay leaders that I was given before I turned in my slides. I was given 2 or 3 more names after that, but you see there's a lot of nones even when you add the 3 names. So if you are a district lay leader, I have 2 requests for you. One is I want you to stand now. If you're a district lay leader, stand. So you notice that's not 18. Okay, I would like if the district lay leaders could, if you can meet me afterwards so we can talk just a couple of minutes about moving forward. But I'm also going to ask if you would like to be a district lay leader, you can come talk to me, you can email me, or you can talk to your presiding elder. Okay? But we are going to have a big push. I've got that promise from Scott that our big push this year is to get district lay leaders in every district. Okay? So let's go to the next slide. District lay leaders have to be part of the team. And I apologize to keep looking down, but I either look up or I look down. Okay? They have to be part of the team. We're going to have a conference-wide lay leaders team that has all of the district lay leaders on it. Okay, I'm going to follow a process I used at work as I created a new department where I had regular meetings with people and we just talked. We talked about what was good. We talked about what was bad. We got to know each other. And by doing that, we were able to share solutions to common problems. And so that's going to be the goal for this year for our conference-wide district lay leaders team, is to get to know each other, to start seeing what's good, and to start figuring out how we solve our common problems, how we, I want to keep the definition loose because it's going to be very different from district to district. It's going to be very different from your membership with your presiding elders team. Some presiding elders team, you're going to be fighting more to be a district lay leader and to be part of it than others that have really embraced this. So we're going to work through those problems together. That's the best way I know to do that. I will be asking the district lay leaders to have a district-wide lay leaders team. So the local church lay leaders would be on the district lay leaders team. So your district lay leader would meet with the local church lay leaders to do the same thing we're going to do at the conference level with the district lay leaders. Let's build a team. Let's figure out how to solve our problems together. What we need to remember, and I really should have started with this, is the conference is here to enable local churches to do ministry. That is in our culture statement. We're not here to have power. We're here to enable, to help commonize solutions when possible, to help connect people, to help learn to solve problems. We are not here to dictate. Okay, and that's why I'm pushing the team model. Okay? The district lay leaders then are there for the same reason. They just might be easier for you to get to. There's 300 and something churches, and there's no way I could handle that. We've got 18 districts, and that's going to be pushing it. Really going to be pushing it. So the district lay leaders, we're going to talk about some ways they might even break their job down if it's too big. But they're really there to enable the local churches. The conference is there to enable the local churches. Everything we are to do is to enable you to go out and do ministry, to enable you to live in a way that you can grow the kingdom, that you are part of that, and that you can look back and see how you did it. How you were part of growing the kingdom, because all of us need to know sometimes that we made a difference. So we're here to help you make that difference, okay? The district lay leaders will also be on the presiding elders district team, okay? So our presiding elders are supposed to each have a team. The district lay leader should be part of that team. Okay? One of the things that will happen is if you're not being included in the team, you can contact me, I'll contact Scott, and we'll fix it. Okay? We'll get it fixed. But that's one of the things I'm here for you for also, is to help fix if you're not getting what you need. Okay? So let's go to the next slide. We, as a conference-wide lay leaders team for the district, we're going to meet monthly. We're going to discuss the good and the bad. We're going to discuss solutions to the bad. We're going to discuss consistency, because again, we are connectional. We have a catechism that says what we believe. We should be able to be consistent across that. We're going to receive information both directions. The other role that we're going to do is we're going to encourage spiritual formation. One of the things that I'm learning as I teach a class on the catechism is how much we don't know. And, everybody, you think you know what the church believes, but start discussing the catechism. And it's quite an experience. And I'm working on writing a curriculum for that. So when that's available and Scott has reviewed it and approved it, I'll make it available as well. And then I want to, again, as I talk about the catechism, I don't care if you agree with the catechism or not. That is not my role to care about that. What I do care is, as a district lay leader, as a local church lay leader, as a Sunday school teacher, whatever you believe, you teach our catechism. Okay? This is not about what I believe. This is about what the church teaches. And so I want to emphasize that. You're going to teach it, and people are going to say, wait a minute, I don't agree with that. And you're going to say, okay, but this is what the church teaches, and my job is to communicate to you what the church teaches. So I want to emphasize that to all of you. If you haven't gone in and studied that catechism, and you don't know what the church teaches, and you are a Sunday school teacher or a lay leader or any kind of leader, make sure you know what the church teaches, and that's what you speak, okay, when you are teaching. Because this is not about what I believe. This is how we are a common GMC denomination with at least a common understanding of our beliefs. Okay? And I know I sound preachy with that, and I'm going to look at you and tell you, when you look at the Catechism, the first half is on the Nicene Creed, second half is on Wesleyan theology. The first half is what Christians believe. If you've got a problem with that, go talk to your pastor. Okay? Because that is basic Christianity. Second half is what the GMC teaches as far as Wesleyan theology. Again, that's what you have to teach. So I'm saying that. That is something I want the district lay leaders to say. That's something I want local church lay leaders to say. We need to be focusing on spiritual formation. Our pastors can't do it all. Okay? It's just too much. We have to do our part. Okay? If we don't do our part, we aren't growing the kingdom. We're not multiplying, okay, if we don't do our part here. So, again, I know it sounds preachy, but this is something that I feel very passionate about. There are people in this room that can tell you I feel very passionate about it because they hear it all the time. Right, Susan? So anyway, I just want to say all that. I want to make sure you understand that. Please study it. Please know what we believe. So, next slide. For you who are district lay leaders, or you who are thinking about being district lay leaders, there's our meeting schedule. Those are all Saturday mornings. I tried to keep them on the early side so I didn't destroy your Saturday. I will confess they are Saturdays that my grandson is with his father, so I can't see him. So it is worked around his visitation schedule. But you'll notice there is no July. The reason there is no July, and this is for those of you that try to email me, I am going to be out of the country for 2 weeks. I'll be in the country next week. I'm out of the country for 2 weeks. We're also moving. So we will be moved by that meeting, and I will be functioning. So that's why we waited till then. So district lay leaders, will make sure that I have your emails, and I will email the schedule to you. So next slide. Again, I want to talk about the district lay leaders leading the local church lay leaders meeting in the church, in the district. And again, it's the same thing. Discuss the good and the bad. Discuss the solutions to the bad. These are going to be back and forth discussions between the conference level and the district level, and we'll go back and forth so that we are common across the conference. And it's also to receive the same information both directions. If the group is too large and too much work, the district lay leaders can break it up into circuits. We do have circuits, and they can have, some of these circuits are huge physically, okay? Or some of these districts are huge physically. They're not necessarily different sizes and numbers of churches, but they're different sizes in area. And if you're in a district in Wisconsin, you've got the same number of churches over 4 times the area of a district in Indiana. And so you may need circuit lay leaders to help. And that's okay. And you can do that. The circuits have already been formed. If you need a circuit lay leader, we can do that. Okay? And that's really needs to be up to each district, what they can and can't manage. If you're working a full-time job and you're a district lay leader, you're going to need more help than if you're retired. So this is one of the things I wanted to talk about. We are flexible. We're going to make this work so that everybody's getting what they need in a way that they can do what they need to do. Okay? So I want to make sure that everyone understands that option's up there. And if you don't feel like you can be a district lay leader, but maybe you feel like you could handle a circuit, when we have a district lay leader, especially if you're in one of these huge districts, let your district lay leader know, because that will help. Again, it's about communicating and being able to visit a church if you need to visit a church. Things like that. We need to be able to do that, to be able to visit churches, to go talk to people, to be able to go and explain things. You're going to see a video in a few minutes where we're going to talk about, this job's just too big for the pastors. And we've got to take our part, and we've got to do what we can do to help grow the kingdom. Okay? This is all about growing the kingdom. Next slide. The district lay leader should also be part of the presiding elders district team. They're going to meet with that team. Plus, I'm asking you to meet a minimum of twice a month with the presiding elder. I have a weekly meeting with Scott. Now, the advantage of having a weekly meeting with Scott is if something happens, we're still meeting twice a month. So how you all make that work, that's up to you. But you need to be meeting at least twice a month where you're talking about your dreams. Your dreams for the laity, their dreams for the district, the problems. This is where you can have that private conversation to become a partner with your presiding elder. It is your job to support the direction of the presiding elder. Now, you're going to be that partner. You're going to be giving them feedback. You're going to be talking. Ultimately, they are responsible for the district, and so you need to support them. And so what I want to say to you is if you cannot work with the presiding elder, resign, volunteer to resign, and help find somebody that can work with the presiding elder. Okay? I would say that is also true if you are a local church lay leader and you cannot work with the pastor. Out of integrity, you should not have to be asked to resign. You should be able to say, this isn't working. I'm doing harm because we can't get along. I suggest you consider so-and-so as your lay leader. Okay? I'm asking you to do that. I really don't want to get a phone call that I need to call you and ask you to do that. Okay? And I have said to Scott, I think that is our responsibility. But if we don't do that, then the presiding elder or the pastor should be able to do that. And out of integrity, I would like it to come from the lay side. Okay? If you can't work with the pastor, or you can't work with the presiding elder, or you can't support their direction, resign and help them find someone that can. Okay? They are, the elder is responsible for ordering the life of the church. Okay? That is their responsibility. Our responsibility is to help to grow the kingdom. Okay? If we're not supporting them ordering the life of the church, now I'm not talking about if they're going off doing weird theology that's not Christian, that's a different matter. Okay? But if it's just, I don't like this direction, resign. Okay? If their theology's off the wall, you need to be calling your presiding elder. Okay? But in general, assuming that their theology is good, if you can't work with them, if you can't support their direction, help them find someone that can. Okay? That is, the elder has two things that they are responsible for: the sacraments and ordering the life of the church. They are the only ones that can do those. Well, the deacons can also do the sacraments, but that's not our job.
Karen, when you say elder, you're referring to pastor, not presiding elder. Only.
I'm referring to any ordained elder, whether they are the local church ordained elder or the district the presiding elder or the conference superintendent. or the bishop. That is their job. And if they're a local church pastor, that is their responsibility as well. They're just not ordained to do it. Okay? Does that make sense? So it's just, let's fight about things that are worth fighting about and not do harm. I'm sorry?
I said, and move on from the others.
Yeah. So, okay, let's go on. Next slide. So I talked a little bit about the role of the elder, a little bit about the role of the deacon is to equip the laity and administer the sacraments. But the clergy don't have to do everything. And the role of the lay leaders is to support the direction of the clergy and help do the things that need to be done. Okay? And we're going to have a video on this that I think is just fabulous. And it will... And if you all want copies of these slides, email me and I'll send them to you. They're, and they may be on the website, I don't know. So, but yeah, we're there to grow the kingdom. Okay? I will say, we're the ones that go out and do the work. Okay? But if we're going out and doing the work, we don't want to be ordering the church. We don't want to be making sure that everything is structured right and running right. We want to go out and do the fun part. So, yeah. Okay, next slide. Okay. Hopefully the first presentation was clear. If it wasn't, please find me afterwards. You can email me, but don't expect me to respond for 6 weeks because I'm going to move. So, okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is, So there is a council of conference lay leaders, which I'm part of. It's just getting formed, okay? We have met 2 or 3 times, and we're going to start meeting monthly in August. And there is a petition to General Conference from this council. And so I know some of you are on the delegation, and I want to make sure you're aware of this. Scott has asked me to come talk to the delegation about it as well, but I want all of you to be aware of this as well. So let's go to the next slide. So it's an amendment to paragraph 710.1.A5 to amend it to read the annual conference lay leader or equivalent. Each annual conference shall designate a lay leader or equivalent to represent the laity of that conference. The conference lay leader or equivalent shall be meaningfully integrated into the leadership structure of the annual conference and shall be a member of the conference leadership team, connectional council, or equivalent body, ensuring the voice of the laity is present in key leadership discussions and decision making. So we've been doing that in our conference, but this is going to make it, if it gets supported, it will make it official for all conferences. Next slide. There's also a new paragraph that's being requested to be added. There shall be a council of annual conference lay leaders composed of the conference lay leader or equivalent from each annual conference of the Global Methodist Church. We've already formed this, but it's not official. The council shall organize itself and elect its own officers. The council shall have no legislative, executive, or judicial authority. Council may provide strategic insight and recommendations to appropriate leadership bodies and may collaborate on initiatives and strategies developed by the council. So again, we need to be connectional. Just as we're saying that we want our districts to be connected on a team, we want our local churches to be connected on a team. We're trying to do the same thing at a denominational level. Okay? Next slide. There's an impact statement with it. It says this petition strengthens lay leadership across all annual conferences and establishes the Council of Annual Conference Lay Leaders to formally recognize and include the voice of lay leaders in the denomination while fostering collaboration, communication, and the development of resources that enhance the effectiveness of lay ministry. So everything I just said, we're trying to do at a conference or a denominational level as well. Okay? So I think that's it on this section. Next slide. Yeah, so this was the section on lay leaders. It was the section, and I included the petition in the section on lay leaders because it's a lay leader topic. I want to make sure you all are all aware of what's going on. This was providing information. If there are questions about this, you can contact me afterwards, but we've got, I don't know how I'm doing on time. Sorry. But yeah, we got a lot to do in the next hour. So, we're going to move on. And so what we've got next is a video. And I want to introduce the video a little bit. I asked Scott, because I keep seeing on Facebook, all of these churches that are like, our pastor's leaving. How do we get a new pastor? Okay, I don't know how many of you see that on Facebook, but I see it all the time. We have a process, but apparently we're not communicating the process. So I asked Scott, I said, give me some slides that are going to be used everywhere so that we all see the same slides about how we're going to choose a pastor. I was given these slides the night before they were due. I did not touch these slides. I did not have anything to do with these slides. I'm just going to present the slides. But as I was talking to Scott, he said that Cliff, I can't remember Cliff's last name. What? Cliff Schroeder, who is the presiding elder of Michigan Southeast or something like that, has been working a lot on this and how to really match up churches. And so he offered Cliff to make a video. It wasn't the video I expected. It was much, much better than I expected. I think it's a nice segue from the discussion on lay leaders to the discussion on how he selects pastors. As you listen to it, I want you to think, hey, I'm a lay leader. Maybe I need to be doing some of these things and helping them happen in my church. Okay? So, if you would start the video, please.
Ask yourself, is this a waste of my time, or is this really relevant to my church? I was sitting with the staff parish committee of church, and we were talking about their next pastor, and we were looking specifically at the church priorities in pastoral leadership. That's something that you fill out in your congregational profile. And so in that, it identifies 16 priorities, an example in their next step with a pastor. And so they're asked to rank them on the basis of, is this a vital need? Is this an important need? Is this something that is not urgent? Is it something that's unimportant? Or the last category is actually, is it something that is unknown? So as I sat with this church, I had the image of a perfect pastor for them. A pastor who would put in 80 or 90 hours of the week. A pastor that would put the church ahead of family, ahead of marriage, ahead of their own health, their own Sabbath time. A pastor who would be willing to work into exhaustion in order to accomplish all of the goals. Why did I find that pastor? Because when I looked at their list on their priorities for pastoral leadership, they had 15 of the 16 marked in the urgent or important category. So 15 of the 16, they wanted the pastor to function in at a very high level. And interestingly enough, the one that they did not feel they needed at a high level was the pastor's personal and spiritual growth. And that's something that I'm personally passionate about. I believe that if a pastor is not growing personally and spiritually, there's a point in which they will burn out and they will become somewhat irrelevant to the ministry that they are doing because they become so exhausted. Friends, an over-functioning pastor is someone that it's not only negative in the effects on the health of the pastor, but it's negative in the effects of the health of the church. A pastor is called to preach and to teach and to equip the body, equip the church to do the work of ministry. And when a pastor is just doing it all, then it limits the body from living out their gifts, and it burns out the pastor. So here in Southeast Michigan, we've created a pathway in which, as we go through this profile, it helps the church to discern what are its most critical needs and where are the places where the pastor needs to be serving in the priority areas the church needs to partner with, or the church just needs to carry the load. Now, you may not be in a season of a pastoral transition, but you can certainly go into these church priorities for pastoral leadership, and you can look at this through the same lens and look how you can partner with your pastor. So here's how it works, is we've got those 16 priorities, and the first thing I asked the staff parish committee to do is to take 8 of those and say, we've got this. We will carry this. We will handle this. The pastor does not need to spend hardly any time in this. We've got it. And so it might be something in terms of staff supervision or office management, administration, communications. There may be elements in visitation. Your 8 are your 8. Now, my encouragement is don't try to negotiate for 7 or 6, because that's just saying when you do that, that's going to be, well, we want the pastor to carry more of the load. So identify the 8 that you as a church are going to step up and commit to and say, we are going to carry this part of the load so that our pastor can focus on why God has called this pastor to this church and can focus on the partnership where we should have. So that means there's 8 areas where the pastor is going to be working. And the next thing I asked the staff parish to do is to identify the 4 most critical and select those. And almost always preaching is one of those. Now, often they will negotiate and try to say, well, can we have 5 or can we have 6? And friends, I just urge you, choose 4. And once you have those 4 priorities, you now have the 4 primary areas where your pastor is going to work every week. The remaining 4 are things that are still important, but they're things that should be a partnership between the pastor and the congregation. So one of the things that I could give as an example of that might be visitation. That, well, we want pastors to be out and doing visitation. If all of the visitation is on them, then one of those other priorities that you named in the first 4 is going to be sacrificed to some degree. And so the idea of partnering, developing a visitation team in the congregation could be one of the pieces. Discipleship. Well, we want our pastors involved in discipleship. It's certainly something that they cannot do on their own. And if your pastor is leading every Bible study, every small group, every class meeting, again, they're over-functioning. And so the idea of pouring into others who will then pour in and become part of that discipleship piece. So now you see the breakup in the image of there's 4 areas where the pastor is doing their primary amount of the work. It's like they are invested with 95% of the work in those 4 areas. In the next 4, the congregation is carrying 70 to 80%, and the pastor's partnering in with, say, 20 to 30% of those areas. And don't get all bogged down in the percentages, because I'm just a math guy and I love to talk those. But it's that element of that partnership is really the critical part. And so let me paint the picture in terms of what this looks like hour-wise. I was taught by a mentor many years ago that the way a pastor should organize their week in terms of the time they put in is, if they're a full-time pastor, they should put in what a standard full-time job is plus whatever their most dedicated lay volunteer will put in. So if a standard job is a 40-hour work week and your most dedicated lay volunteer does 10 hours, then that means you've got a total of 50 hours. 80% of that time should be spent in the first 4 areas for the pastor. So those first 4 priorities that are most important for the pastor to be doing in your church, that's where the pastor should be spending 80% of their time. So 40 of those 50 hours. The next 4 areas represent where the pastor should be spending the next portion of their time. So it's 80% of their remaining time. So there's 10 hours left. 80% of that time is about 8 hours. And then that leaves them with 2 hours in which there are going to be things here and there in those areas where the church says, hey, we got this, where the pastor does need to invest a little bit. They might need to be involved in a piece where there's a stewardship campaign, and so they come on with that portion. Or they might need to be involved in some charge conference paperwork or a variety of other things. But hear that. They're spending collectively 2 hours a week on all 8 of those areas combined. And so it might only be 1 or 2 of those areas that they touch in a given week. In the next week, it might be a little more, it might be none at all. Friends, if you do this, this is a way to have a healthy pastor, a healthy church, and a healthy relationship. We've had 3 churches in our district that have followed this to a T. And I have actually watched in the season in which they were without a pastor, they were waiting for their next pastor, they began to activate some of those areas that were the 8 that they said, we got this, and also in the areas where they were partnering, those 4 in the middle, where they were going to partner with their pastor. And so they began leading small groups. They developed visitation teams. They began organizing these pieces and exercising them. And every one of these churches, all 3 of them, actually grew during the time that they were in the absence of a pastor. And I have a 4th church that is in the midst of it right now. Friends, I encourage you that whether you are in a pastoral transition or have your pastor serving for several years and you're saying, we want to create a healthier situation. We want our pastor to be healthy. We want our pastor to have a great relationship with his family. We want our pastor to be spiritually and physically healthy. We don't want to burn out our pastor. Friends, you can begin moving in this direction. Just open up your church profile and look at these and begin to have that conversation. One last piece on new pastors and new appointments. Sometimes when a church is doing interviews, they're looking for a pastor and then they tell me that their greatest aim is that pastor will be there for another 10 or 15 years. And I understand the idea that we at the conference, we certainly are striving to make longer term appointments. We know that those relationships are critical. But I would urge you that that would not be your number one priority going in, the length of the pastorate. Because sometimes when we make that our priority, we begin to look past some of the other important pieces of what it is to serve as a church, living out the kingdom call in that community. So our element is effectiveness. Our element is leading in the next season for your church. And that means that you may walk with your pastor for 3 or 4 or 5 years. You may walk with your pastor for 12 or 15 or more years. It's the element of we want healthy clergy, healthy churches, and we want both working for the advancement of the kingdom of God.
So I thought that was a nice segue between your lay leader roles and choosing the pastor, because
Is that video going to be available?
we will make sure it's available.
I need to show that to my church.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. They all need I think all of our churches need to see it.
I have the master.
Yes, and I have a copy of it also.
Give you my email.
Yeah.
And I can send it to you.
That's the best way because he has the master. I do have a copy of it. I can also send it to you. I will talk to Ben. I think he's live streaming this session, so that will also make it available to you. Yes, they're waving back. It is being live streamed. So it's available that way as well. And we'll find another way to make it available as well. Okay? Because I agree. All of our churches need to see this. All of our leadership councils need to see this. All of our lay leaders need to be thinking about this. You can use this video to introduce the concept to your leadership council. Okay? And then you can use it to introduce it to the church once the leadership council's figured out how to do it. I think this is, as lay leaders, this is going to be the most important thing we do in the next season of making healthy churches that can multiply. Okay? So I thought that was a terrific video. It was not what I asked for. It was so much better than I asked for. So, Dave recorded it, Cliff did it. Cliff's incredible. He's a fabulous presiding elder anyway. So, okay. So the next topic, we can go ahead and move to the next slide, is the process for appointing clergy to a local church. And again, I asked for this so that we had a common set of slides that we showed everyone. It was given to me the night before. There's been no cleanup to it. I'm going to talk to Scott about that as well. But in the meantime, this is something common that can be shown to everybody so we all hear the same message. So that we don't get on Facebook and say, how do I get a new pastor? Okay? So that's the one that horrifies me the most, is when I see that. And if somebody else hasn't said, go talk to your presiding elder, then you'll see me put it on there. So, okay, so our process for appointing clergy to a local church. Next slide. Phase 1 is database and profile management. So let's go to the next slide. The cabinet has a responsibility. The cabinet is composed of the conference superintendent, the dean of the cabinet, and the presiding elders of the district. Okay? So you're presiding elders on that cabinet. There's a dean of the cabinet that helps manage the cabinet. And then our conference superintendent, who is Scott, is also on that cabinet. So let's move to the next slide. Their job is to ensure that the cabinet is representing all the regions, so all the districts, all the states, all the areas, all the churches, all the clergies, all the people groups, and all the regional identities. I don't think that's meant to be DEI, but it does sound like DEI, so but we do need to make sure everybody's represented. You know, that you have a voice through your presiding elder. That you can go to your pastor, who can go to the presiding elder, you can go to the presiding elder, you can go to your district lay leader, who can go to the presiding elder. You've got a lot of paths, okay? We want to make sure that you have that voice. Let's go to the next slide. And then we have a cabinet secretary, and their job is data management. And they are to maintain a comprehensive database of the church profiles and the clergy profiles. Church profiles should be updated at least once per year. Don't wait and update it when you're getting a new pastor. Update it every year. Just make it part of your routine in December or November or charge conference to update your church profile. You've got those 16 areas. Which 8 are we going to work on as laity? Okay? Do that once a year. This is the time now, because this is the first time you've done it, thinking about it this way. Go ahead and get started. Okay? The clergy are also required to update them at least once a year. Now, this is something that's different from our past. In our past, the clergy only updated when they were moving. Okay? And our churches only updated when they were moving. This way, by updating once a year, if something happens, you're already updated. You know, if your clergy has to leave because they get sick or they retire or they get pulled away to another church, you've already got your profile. You don't have to go in a panic and say, what do I want? Okay, so I want to encourage you, update it once a year. This first time where you're looking at those 16 different areas, that first time, start now. Have lots of discussion about it. You know, have your, maybe you want to have your leadership team talking to people in the congregation. You know, have lots of discussion. Next slide. The secretary also maintains a confidential list of clergy seeking appointments and churches seeking appointments. So if you're wanting a new pastor, you tell your presiding elder, and that's not published. Okay? The world does not know this is happening. On the other hand, if your clergy is looking for another spot, he talks to the presiding elder. Okay? So they maintain that list. It's not available to the entire conference. It's not available to the entire world. Next slide. Phase 2 then, so the phase 1 was that database management. Let's make sure that we just know who everybody is, where they are, what they're trying to accomplish. And then the phase 2 is to go into the initial evaluation process. So let's go to the next slide. So the way this works, the church informs the presiding elder that there's a clergy vacancy, or the presiding elder is aware of a vacancy due to a change in clergy appointment or status. Okay? Some way the presiding elder knows that there is a vacancy. Okay? You can contact your your lay leader or your staff parish chair can contact the presiding elder. Don't just everybody go contact him. Okay? So, but yeah, so that's the first step, is we know there's a vacancy. Next slide. The cabinet then looks at all the potential clergy, those who are available or currently appointed, and they ensure that all the potential clergy are appointable per board of ministry by checking with the vice chair of the representative of the respective region. So if your clergy has done something that they've had to leave for a reason that makes them not appointable, they are no longer guaranteed an appointment. You are not going to get a clergy with a known problem that makes them not appointable. Okay, I'm going to assure you of all that. Okay? You're not going to get an unappointable clergy. Okay? Next slide. And then they're going to pray over the appointments. They're going to consider the missional needs of the congregation, and they're going to create a short list of 2 to 3 potential clergy. So remember, as we look at those missional needs, that's where your church profile is so important. Okay? What are the 8 things we can handle no matter who our pastor is? Okay? What are the 4 things we need our pastor to be able to cooperate with us on? What are the 4 things that our pastor must be able to do well? Okay? That's what your profile is telling them. They're going to pray over that. They're going to say, oh, well, we've got 2 or 3 clergy that might be a good match. Next slide. They're going to look at the clergy skill set, the effectiveness, the age, the gender, the ethnicity. Not wanting a female pastor is not acceptable. Okay? We are not complementarian. Okay? Women can be excellent, excellent pastors. My daughter's a pastor in the UNC, and her church did not want a woman pastor. And they got her, and they think all they can have now is women pastors. That's not good either. But, you know, it's the right pastor is not because of their sex. So they're going to consider all of that. Let's go to the next slide. And then the presiding elder, in deep consultation with the cabinet, will rank in order if there's more than one potential clergy. This is really, really important. They're going to pray over those 2 to 3 clergy, and they're going to come back and say, we believe that this is the best fit given what the church is telling us and given what the clergy is telling us. Therefore, it is really, really, really important that you are honest on your profile. If you want a good match, you need to be honest on your profile. We've got churches out there that would not accept Jesus Christ. okay? We all know that. Don't be that church, okay? Don't be that church. So, next slide. So the next phase then, phase 3, is the profile exchange and review. So let's go to the next slide. The clergy is going to receive the church profile. Again, you guys have been really, really honest about it. And so it's a really good profile. And this is like, yeah, we can handle these 8 things, and we'll let you know if we have an issue, but we can handle it. They're going to receive the ministry context information, and they're going to get time for prayerful consideration. Okay? They're not going to be told, this is it, this is what you're getting, say yes or no right now. They're going to get some time. Next slide. And then they're going to provide a report about how their gifts enhance that church ministry. If they have any family or ministry concerns, for example, my daughter is limited itinerancy because she's divorced and her son can only be so far from his father. Their enthusiasm level for ministry and any needed transitional support. So they're going to tell the cabinet, this is what I need to be able to do this, and this is why I think this is a good fit for me. Okay? Let's go to the next one. And then, if that clergy is open to the move, SPRC is going to receive 1 clergy profile for review and time for prayerful consideration. Now, I'm going to tell you, the cabinet is going to give you the best fit they believe is out there for you. Okay? You can turn it down, but you're turning down what the cabinet believes is your best fit. Okay? You're not going to get 3 people and interview all 3 and decide who you like. The cabinet's going to say, we think this is your best fit. Pray about it. Talk to them. Realize if you turn down, if the cabinet, if you've done your part on having a good profile, and the clergy's done their part, and the cabinet's done their part, then their best fit is probably the right fit of the available options. Okay? So I want to emphasize that. You are going to get time for prayerful consideration. You are not going to be told, this is who it is, this is your intake meeting, go for it. Okay, they're not going to do that to you. You're going to get to, you have a voice, okay? Just realize this is who they think is the best fit. So if you're turning that down, what you get next might not be as good, okay? I want to emphasize that. Next slide.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
The pastor, if you get a new pastor in a new church, does the church get right to interview that pastor? They used to do that in United Methodist Church.
Okay.
And I don't know if they've done that in the global church.
May I repeat the question so that it's on the live stream? Okay. So the question is will the church have an opportunity to interview the pastor? Okay? The answer is yes.
Okay. Since I've sat down a lot of these, I realized what the church sent out, and when they do the interviews, they don't come across the same way. And that's a scary thing.
Okay, so I'm going to try to say what you said again so that everybody hears it. The concern is that what the church sends out and what is received back doesn't always get perceived the same way. Okay, this is where I come back to you and say, put a lot of time and effort into it, especially this year. Okay? The one you do this year, go use that process we talked about with the 16 characteristics. Talk to, bring the video into your leadership team. Talk to them. Talk to your Sunday school classes. Talk to the small groups. understand what people are willing to do. Maybe they don't realize they have opportunities to do things. Put a lot of time into this first profile, okay? Make sure that it's very clear. Have somebody else read it, okay? Do they read it the same way you wrote it? Let your district lay leader read it. You know, outside eyes, and they can say, this is what I'm seeing, is this what you're saying? Okay, that would be my advice to you there. That's just general good practice. Am I communicating what I think I'm communicating? Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a question back there.
Where can we get a copy of the church profile, that form that had the...
Okay, so the question is, where can you get a copy of the church profile? I will have to get that answer for you. I don't know the answer to that. I would probably call Tyler and ask him where to get it personally. It's on the conference website, okay? So, under resources. So now everybody knows the answer, including me. Thank you. Yes.
I think we were supposed to do it even this year, the church conference.
Well, you better get started. Yeah. But my comment is redo it this year. Based on this video we just watched, go in and spend 3 months doing it well. Okay, getting somebody to read it. Get your district lay leader to read it. You know, does it say what you think it says? Because once you have it done well, it's easy to update from year to year. Okay? Yes. Okay, so let me repeat that, and you tell me if I repeated it incorrectly. This church back here, they've been in this process of trying to get a pastor. They're in the UP, and none of the pastors want to go to the UP, and it took them 10 months to get a pastor. So if you are in a location that is out in the middle of nowhere, you're probably going to have more trouble getting a pastor to go that way, okay? Where if you're in a larger area like my church, we don't have a problem. We've got decent schools, we've got decent living, you know, it's close to Indianapolis, you know. But yeah, up in the UP, I can see where you would have trouble. So, okay. So this can take a long time because the clergy have to be willing to go, okay? So you're going to provide, the SPRC is going to come back then, and they're going to have looked at this profile, and they're going to come back within a couple of weeks and say, these are the clergy strengths for the ministry context of the church and the areas of concern you have for the potential fit. So you get to say, I'm concerned. Okay, next slide. The fit designation is a high potential fit, a potential fit, unsure of fit, or low potential fit. If you say low potential fit, you're going to have to give a good explanation. Okay? And then you're going to return to the start of the process, and they're going to look again. Next slide. So you've done all this. You've looked at the profiles. Now we go to the initial take-in and preview meeting process. So this is where you get to talk to them. Next slide. There's going to be a meeting scheduled between the clergy and the clergy spouse, if applicable, and the SPRC members. Now, next slide. If you have a parsonage, that meeting should include the parsonage tour, and the presiding elder is going to moderate that meeting. Okay? So somebody independent is going to be running the meeting for you, which is good. So, next slide. The meeting has to have sufficient time for interaction. It's not a 5-minute meeting. You know, you need to have enough time to interact with this person to make sure that you can work with this person. Okay? Next slide. The moderator role, the presiding elder role, is to make sure they're facilitating conversation and discernment. They're asking clarifying questions. So again, that concern about if I say something and it's not understood correctly, the presiding elder's role is to make sure that that's clarified. The presiding elder has to be neutral. They can't push this person down your throat. Okay? And they have to ensure all of the pertinent information is shared. Next slide. Then the phase 5, so now you've gotten to talk to them. Now you're going to do your discernment and your final decision. So next slide. Both parties, the clergy and the church, are to engage in deep discernment with a minimum of 3 days of prayerful consideration. Okay? You cannot do this immediately. You must take at least 3 days to pray about it. Okay? That's a bit different than we're used to. Okay? Next slide. Then both parties are going to communicate with the presiding elder. They're not talking to each other about their decision. They're talking to the presiding elder, and they're going to say if they're willing to proceed, and if they have concerns or reservations, and then there's going to be a final decision. Okay? Next slide. If the match is agreed upon, the presiding elder will complete the change of appointment form. They'll submit that to the conference superintendent. The conference superintendent will submit it to the bishop. Only the bishop can appoint. You heard Bishop Scott say that yesterday, right? Only the bishop can appoint. Mark, thank you. Yeah. All the names are just floating through my head between retiring and buying a house and selling a house, and it's been crazy. I don't know my name anymore. Next slide. The bishop's going to fix the appointment. The updates are going to be made in the relevant databases. We're back to the cabinet secretary now. And then the announcement's going to be made at the church where the clergy is departing, if applicable, simultaneously with the announcement at the church where the appointment is being made. So we're going to make them at the same Sunday. Okay? So somebody doesn't get surprised. Okay? That's just integrity. Okay? So, okay, next slide. If the match is not agreed upon, you're going to return to phase 2.2. You're going to say why this didn't work, and you're going to address any systemic issues. Realize that they thought this was your best match. You may not do better. Okay, I'm not telling you have to accept your first choice. I'm just saying you have to understand the risk. Okay? Next slide. So, this is a standard set of slides that should be shown to every church, every elder, so that we're all following the same process. We all understand it the same way. Okay? And it's consistent. So that's the last thing I had, but this is a topic I see a lot on. I wanted to make sure that we were at least all on the same page in this room. And, we can, those slides are going to be available. You can show them to your churches, whatever you need to do that way. So, yes.
Is this process typically always going to take place in the spring?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that because I could not hear?
Is this process typically going to happen in the spring?
No. No. The question is, will this process typically happen in the spring? This process will happen when it needs to happen. Okay? We are not appointing annually like our old denomination did. You are appointed until you are moving. Okay, so this process happens when either the clergy needs to move or the church thinks they need a new clergy. Okay? Now, if it happens in December and you've got one who has kids, there may be some negotiation you have to do about schools. I can't tell you that, but it's not an appointment a year at a time. It's an appointment until something changes. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes.
So these slides, along with the video, will be available on the conference website then? Or?
I believe so. If they are not, we'll find a way to make them available to you. Yeah. You need these. Absolutely, you need these. These were the two topics I hear about all the time. And so that's why we did these two topics this year.